Hello and welcome to the Walk Off, everybody. I'm very excited for today's episode as we have a returning guest that we haven't had in way too long. My name is Scott Belford. If you are not subscribed to the channel yet, you do us all sorts of good. If you do so, hit that like button. It goes a long way. Just a heads up, everyone, as well. We have Baseball Town, the June edition, coming up on the 12th. So that's a Thursday, 7 p.m. start time. Our panel is from Sportsnet 590 The Fan. Daniele Franceschi makes his debut appearance on the panel. We have Shoa Lee returning, of course, producer with Sportsnet and host of Jays Talk. And then we have Adam Peddle from Blue Jays Today returning. Very excited about the show. You can get your tickets in the link that is going to be in the comment section here and the description. And on that, pumped to do this intro. It has been literally far too long. December, I think, is the last time we talked, and I'm so excited to get this guest input, thoughts, baseball knowledge on everything 2025 Blue Jays. Uh, Long toss veteran. We were just talking about that. Hopefully, we can maybe do a few one-time ones throughout the season here, get it back up and going. Baseball Town panelist, long-time Blue Jays analyst. A long-winded intro, all to say, Jen Smith, Baseball Jen, welcome back. So good to have you.
So good to be here. I've missed talking ball with you, buddy.
I feel the same way. And you know what? It is the timing seems perfect on this as we can maybe lean into the positives a little bit coming off of a 5 game win streak. So let's start with this, Jen, because I honestly, more than any other recent season in memory, can't think of a team that is really hard to get the pulse of. Where it's like, what is this team? And I really still, even now, don't have an answer. I am a little bit more positive after seeing the offense start to come around in May, but there's still question marks up and down this lineup. So, just to give a broad overview of where you're at on this 2025 Blue Jays and how you're feeling about the team right now.
I think that this is a team that is still really searching for its identity, right? It doesn't know if it wants to be defense and pitching or if it wants to be offense first. And I think we can all agree after the past few seasons that this team thrives on offense,
Mm-hmm.
right? The defense first, pitching first has not exactly worked out for them in the long run. So, it's been really good to see them, swing the bats the last 4 games in particular. Really great to see the home runs flying out of Skydome and, giving the fans something to be excited about and something to cheer about, right? And
It's
this
about
season,
time.
yeah, because this season has just basically more or less been what their record is, which is mid,
Mm-hmm.
right? It's been mid. So, it's hard to draw any conclusions when you're mashing against one of the worst teams in baseball. But the flip side is that no matter what, 4 game sweeps are hard to do. And they did it.
They did it. They did do it. And you know what? They piled up the runs. They had
Absolutely.
39 in the series. They had 60 runs in their last 6 days, which is honestly a record for any Blue Jays team. So, an insane amount of offense. So, I guess my question to you then, Jen, is do you have confidence that they have turned a corner with this offense? Or are we still really unsure of what this is?
I personally am still somewhat unsure of what this is because as much of a revelation as Addison Barger and Ernie Clement have been, they've never been able to do this long term at the major league
Mm-hmm.
level, right? So have they really found something? Or are they on a hot streak? Like it's difficult to know. They do look different. Like Addison Barger in particular, for instance, seems to have a different approach. His plate discipline is better. He's really cut
Much
down.
better, actually. That's a
Yeah,
great point.
yeah, he's
Yeah.
really cut down on his strikeouts. So, has he actually figured it out? It's totally possible, in which case that's fantastic, right? I don't know if we know yet. And then there's other pieces that still aren't clicking, and we've been waiting and waiting.
Mm-hmm.
And are they going to click into place, right? For instance, when he returns to the lineup, is Anthony Santander going to be able to be that bat that they went out and got in the offseason? Is he going to come anywhere close to that? Is George Springer, I know he had a bit of a dip there, but is he going to essentially be able to continue, being as productive as he's been over the course of 162? Like, there are some very bright spots, but I would still say they're question marks over the long course of the season. So I think there's reason to be optimistic, but not guardedly.
So let's dive into a few of these points, Jen, because I want to talk Addison Barger with you just a little bit. I actually ran a Blue Jays trivia night last night at Left Field Brewing, and there were about 60 Blue Jays fans there that were just a blast to talk to because all of them had different feelings. But one of the things most people were saying is Addison Barger is our long-term third baseman. Now, everyone listening, just kind of brace yourself for what I'm about to say because I was driving people nuts last night. I haven't bought in yet. I like Addison Barger. I think he's showing a lot of good things. I still think that he might be the best trade chip in this team right now. And I know that people don't like to give up on 25-year-old guys with the sort of power ceiling that an Addison Barger has. But he's at 5 dingers right now, and I know he's been hot lately. So I kept asking people, do you think he's going to hit 20 home runs this year? So that's a question I wanted to ask you, Jen. Do you think he's going to hit 20 home runs this year? And if there is an opportunity to go out and listen, I know the name I'm about to say is literally picking the highest, dreaming type of scenario, but
Go big or go home.
and I would only move Addison Barger to make this team better, right? Like, I don't want to see Addy traded for, a bullpen piece. That's not what I'm after. But let's say there's a scenario where the Boston Red Sox continue to fade and ownership has decided that their main target next year is Kyle Tucker, and a great way to free up money for a guy who's probably also going to get $500 million like Vladdy would be to move their $300 million third baseman slash DH that seems like a malcontent right now. Of course, I'm talking about Rafi Devers. If you could get a Devers and Addison Barger and let's say Trey Yesavich and another high-end pick that isn't Arjun Namala is packaged together, are you okay with that? Are you okay giving up the ceiling that is Addison Barger, the ceiling that is Trey Yesavich for a guy like Rafi Devers, who is going to just hit 30 home runs every year without thinking, right? Like when I posed the question, do you think he's going to hit 20 home runs? Everyone was kind of like, ooh, I guess I never really, yeah, I don't know.
Yeah, like I said, I don't know that he'll hit 20 home runs. I think that he has the potential, but
Mhm.
he's never sustained this before. So has he truly found it? And I will say, every time Addison Barger does something at the plate, in my mind, I say, that's a guy.
Mhm.
That's a guy.
Mhm.
That's literally the phrase that I use to describe him. Um, would I trade him to make the team better? Absolutely. Because I just think that, if we talk about this team and their quote unquote windows of contention, where exactly are we right now in a window of contention?
It's a
Right?
great question. I mean,
Like,
it's a tough one to answer even.
right. It's exactly. I don't know that there is a clear answer, right? They ended up locking up, Vladdy for basically the remainder of his career. It doesn't look like that's happening with Bichette. I would just guess
Mhm.
at this point, right? So where exactly is this team going? How do you improve on what you currently have? And, I've heard different conversations about this just, on the radio is, you know, you have to do what it takes to improve this team, right? Especially if around the trade deadline you're kind of in it, right? You're looking at the relatively weak AL East.
Mhm.
Let's say that out loud. The relatively weak AL East, And
Even
how
the
many
relatively weak American
American
League, which
League,
is crazy.
right? And how many times do these opportunities kind of come
I
along
don't remember
that
the last
you can take
time.
advantage of them, right? So I think that that's something that absolutely would have to be considered. And anytime you make a trade like that, you are going to upset members of the fan base,
Yes,
right?
absolutely.
You can't
To get value, you need to give up value, and not
correct,
everyone likes that.
correct, right? And you know, that's the way that it has to be done. You kind of have to be bold, right? So,
Because I'm curious, Jen, like it feels to me like, and I want your opinion on this, it feels to me like this team needs a superstar bat still. Like, and
oh,
I don't
absolutely.
mean like Anthony Santander. I loved them going after Pete Alonso, and I mean Alonso is showing right now why he was probably the guy to go after. Um, it does feel like they need another piece to pair with Vlad. If it's not going to be Bo, they definitely need another piece. Is Devers something of interest to you? Like
Yeah,
where would
absolutely.
yeah, right? Okay, I'm in the
Absolutely.
same boat. Yeah.
Well, I mean, even when they signed Santander, the conversation was still that they needed another bat,
Hmm.
right? And so, I guess
Even
really,
more so now that he's done nothing.
right, absolutely. It's kind of the lack of offense up until recently has really highlighted the fact that they needed more than one bat, right? They needed to sign somebody. And so, to me, like I said earlier, if you're going to go that route, then you are going to unfortunately have to trade something that you don't want to trade. You have to trade a piece to get a piece in return. And I don't know, if his time in Boston is kind of done, right? If they are mutually looking to part ways, Toronto would not be the only team
Of
knocking on the
course
door.
not.
So
But there are a lot of reasons why you could, and I'm not talking Toronto, by the way. I just mean there
sure.
are a lot of reasons why Boston might actually be ready to move on from Devers,
Mhm.
which, I mean, that kind of talent at 27 years old is very, very rarely available. I think he just turned 28. Either way, like he is in his prime right now, right? And
Right.
he's still on the right side of 30. What do you think to move that kind of contract? Because I can't actually think of a team moving $300 million before. And I could be out to lunch here. Nothing's coming out of the top of my head, anyways. Um, Obviously, they want prospects and talent back, but there is the scale has to kind of even out a little bit with the money being such a huge deal because you need a major franchise to step up and take the money, right? Like you
Right.
need one of the big boys, which there aren't a lot of them out there.
But would you consider Toronto to be one of the big boys?
I think so. I
Yeah,
mean, they just
I
spent
would.
$500 million. It's tough to argue. They're the fifth highest payroll in baseball this year. Like, I feel they're at least a top 10 big boy.
I don't think ownership offers that contract or approves of that contract to Vladdy.
To
If
nickel and dime the rest of the way.
correct, right? Because what would be the point of that other than to simply say you got your guy, right? And that just doesn't make good baseball or business sense, right? And
Hmm.
and and baseball is a business to them. That's the bottom line, right? So why would you spend all that capital to then just, fritter it away, really, putting a mediocre team on the field around him.
Hmm.
So, I tend to agree that Toronto would be considered one of the big players in that kind of market and could potentially take on that money. And they've got money coming off the books
They do.
over the next year and two.
And interdivisional trades are normally tough, but I think it is far more likely that the Red Sox would do a deal with the Jays than, let's say, the
The
Yankees for
Yankees.
something like that. So then we're even eliminating one of the other big money organizations because why would the Red Sox trade? I mean, they've learned this long ago with Babe Ruth. Don't trade your franchise player to the Yankees. It's bad
It'll
idea.
it'll haunt you,
It will haunt
quite
you.
literally.
So, grounds crew, everyone listening, feel free to drop your comments below here. Where are you at on Addison Barger? Would you be able to stomach him being moved in a deal that made the team better? And do you feel like just letting him to continue develop is what makes this team better? I don't know enough to not be out to lunch, so my opinion could be way off on this, but I am so into them going out and getting another superstar to pair with Vladdy, especially if they're letting Bo walk. So.
which is, I think, the direction it's going in.
It does feel that way, and
It
we are going to
does.
talk Andre Jimenez, which is kind of a little bit of a clue as to what this front office is thinking. But before we do that, speaking of Vladdy, I do want to talk about the fact that outside of O'Neill Cruz, who actually, I don't know if you saw this, Jen, he hit the hardest exit velo home run in the history of StatCast, 122.9 miles an hour into the Pittsburgh River, just like an insane feat. But the only one even getting close to what O'Neill Cruz is doing is Vladimir Guerrero Jr. I wonder, do you feel like there might be more home runs in that swing to unlock if they can? I mean, the guy just hits piss missiles, like it's just rockets that are doubles off the wall or singles off the wall. It feels like if he can just get his launch angle up a bit, and I know that every expert in baseball would have already done it if they could, right? Like, obviously, this is something they're attempting, but at 26 years old, do you think there are more dingers in that Vladimir Guerrero Jr. bat than we're seeing right now?
Yes, there is another, he has another level to him, right? And, going back to the contract, you do not sign a guy to that kind of a contract without believing that he has another level in
Yeah.
him. And we're just not quite seeing it right now. And to your point, if it were as easy as we're making it
Yeah,
sound, then we
that's
would
right.
all be doing it. So, but I do think that he has another level that he could somehow unlock, right? And we haven't even seen the best out of him that I think we're going to see just this season.
Hmm.
Never mind over the course of the next 2, 3, 4, 5 years, right? As he
Because he's
continues
been
to
great.
mature.
Like, his numbers are fantastic,
Mhm.
Jen. And honestly, I will take 850 to a 900 OPS and 30 dingers every year. But oh my God, is 45 dingers a year tantalizing with those same sort of peripheral numbers? A 300 average and a 900 to a 1,000 OPS. And like, it just, those extra few runs that he's going to provide, like, 15 extra dingers. Like, what does that translate into wins?
Sure.
Maybe 4 or 5 in a year. Like, it's substantial.
Absolutely. And I mean, that is what he's being counted on to do, right? And maybe it's not fair, but when you sign that contract, that is the weight that is put on your shoulders. And I think he wants to be that guy,
Hmm.
right? I actually do think he wants to be that guy. I think it's a little bit harder when you don't have maybe the protection around you in the lineup, or, other guys are not quite pulling their own weight or whatever it is. you know um I understand why fans are maybe, or some fans are a tiny bit disappointed in what they've seen out of him so far,
Yeah.
right? I think they thought that when he signed the contract and that distraction was literally gone, that it would just be smooth sailing, and it
Like
just doesn't
turning a
work.
dial instantly, he's on the next level. Yeah.
Exactly, right? And it doesn't quite work that way. So,
Man, I wish it
only
did.
time will tell.
Yeah, that's right. I wonder too if when we're talking changes in swings, right? And it just bums me out that Dalton Varsho
Ugh,
got injured like he did. Um, I actually heard something really interesting. I'll fill you in on in just a second here. Do you think the change in his swing before he was on the IL, like, are we starting to see a different Dalton Varsho? Do you believe that Dalton Varsho could be a 30 home run guy? Like, we saw him hit 27 in Arizona when they went out and got and traded for him, right? Do you think that this power we saw, which he still is tied for lead on this team with 8 home runs, and he's played a third of the games that
ridiculous.
everyone, yeah,
Yep.
it's insane what he's been doing. Is there some sustainability to that? By the way, I'm not asking you if Dalton Varsho is a 60 home run hitter. I just mean like
No, he looked like a bit of a different guy at the plate. Absolutely. He clearly had figured something out and, what was immediately being rewarded with the results.
Mhm.
Right? How often does that happen that you come back from injury and you're immediately, stepping onto the field and being that kind of a contributor?
And we even saw it in spring training.
Right, absolutely. Like, do I think, he's going to be the guy who, hits for average? No.
No.
But is he going to potentially be have a game-changing moment with one swing of the bat? Absolutely. And that has tremendous value to it. So, that injury was absolutely devastating to see
Oh,
him go down that way.
I was at that game. It made my stomach turn. Like I knew instantly. I was like, my first thought was he tore his hamstring. I was like, I literally like, but while he was hobbling to third, I'm like, he's out for the year. So I mean,
It looks so much worse to
oh my
find out
goodness.
it's just a low grade strain is
And I
such a
mean, 4 to 6 weeks still sucks, but
yes.
holy, it could have been worse. So, um, longtime listener of the show, Patreon member, Mish, right? Mish Beer. So she ran into Max Scherzer on
Oh,
Saturday. I know, just wild. And she wound up having a 10-minute conversation with him because I didn't even know this, but you start to look into it. Scherzer loves to chat, right? So like Max Scherzer, if there is a Blue Jay out there you can run into who will actually talk your ear off about the game, it is Max Scherzer. But she ran into him right after the Varsho injury. Like the game had just ended. She was leaving the stadium in the elevator thing, and they wound up talking about the turf. And I guess it is known that the turf out in the outfield is too soft and that it actually is like a bit of a hamstring nightmare out there because it's tough for the body to kind of recognize like when you're digging in. So that's what he figures happened is that it had tore a little bit in the outfield and then when he was going as hard as he could around second, it just that was it, which really was intriguing because you would think all the talk of the turf, all the talk of how hard it is on the knees and stuff would be because it's hard,
right.
you know? But yeah, it was really interesting to hear that this is something that the players have been complaining about for a while. And Max was even kind of upset about it, right? He was even like, it was a matter of time. So that's
So I wasn't obviously part of the conversation, but that's a pretty bold statement to be making to some random person off the street.
yep. But also, leave it to 41-year-old Max Scherzer who doesn't give a shit to do that, right?
No, no. Well, yeah, he's seen everything that there is to see in the game, and he didn't sign with Toronto to just watch guys go down to injury because of poor playing conditions or
Hmm.
whatever the case might be. And that is really interesting because I think part of the assumption would be because there's concrete under that turf that it is hard.
Hmm.
And maybe they've overcompensated, or I
Yeah,
honestly don't know enough about
I
the
don't either. I just
or the
literally
padding
was,
underneath.
yeah, I was told about this yesterday, but I wanted to talk to you about it because I was like, this is crazy. Like, this is a weird thing to hear from Hall of Fame or one of
Sure.
the biggest stars to, and like you said, to just like volunteer that information to a
So my
stranger.
question, I immediately have questions. Like, one is for how long has the turf been that way? And for how long have players been complaining about it? Is that
Especially
new?
with all these renovations that just
Right, that's what
happened,
I'm
right,
saying. Like, is
Jen?
that new this season, or does this date back the past 5 years? Like, how far back does this go? Is that any kind of a factor in why a player might not want to come to Toronto? Because all these guys play
Hmm.
at the Dome at some point during the season, and is it something that's kind of known about it, or do you have to play on it more regularly to kind of figure that out?
And I mean, let's be serious. I know George Springer was sort of injury prone to begin with, but like from the time he got here, he has
Yes,
had, and it's all been lower body injury. It's all been
right.
oblique and hamstring, and like it's his knee. Yeah. So
So I think we have found phase four of the renovation, and if Shapiro can figure it out, maybe he stays on another year.
that's why you keep going out and getting DHs. So, Jen, the bullpen has been actually kind of a nice surprise. I mean, listen, outside of Jeff Hoffman blowing up a few times,
Oh
and
gosh.
let's start with that. Let's start with that because I do want to know how much leeway do you give Hoff as the closer here? And I know with Jimmy on the IL, there's not a lot of other options, but once Garcia is back, and if Yariel Rodriguez continues to be, I mean, my God, has this bullpen gotten deeper since he's kind of found his stuff back there? Do you think that if Hoffman continues to struggle from time to time and maybe not be as reliable as you would want him, can you see a closer by committee type of scenario? Can you see a going with the hot hand or
They have
the
to.
best
They
matchups?
have to win games, bottom line. Um, you either you have to ride the hot hand and you have to have a quick hook. That's all,
Hmm.
right? It's because they're not, this team is not in a position to give away wins. No team is really, but
Hmm.
when you are fighting for a final wild card spot, which is where they would be, you don't want that scene at the end of the season with sad Vlad sitting on the bench because they've missed, the postseason by
Hmm.
one win, right? So yeah, absolutely. And nobody in decision making authority is in a position to, just squander wins. Everybody's fighting for a job at this point, right? It's like
Yeah.
it feels like it, right? It's like we know that if this season really goes south, there are going to be major changes in the front office. John Schneider would probably be gone. So, every single decision has to be to win that particular ball game. Forget feelings, forget any of that.
I mean, Ross Atkins has more lives than most cats do, and we are going to talk Atkins in just a second here because I do want your opinion.
My
You
favorite
did
topic.
kind of touch on it a little bit that the deadline could be interesting, but let's get back to the bullpen real quick here
Yeah.
because I want to know. And listen, I'm well aware that really it is. There's a lot of luck involved with a very good bullpen, and a lot of times it's having the horses in there to get it done and crossing your fingers that they kind of all come together at the same time. Do you think if the Blue Jays make the playoffs, does this bullpen have the horses that we can cross our fingers and hope it comes together?
Right now, no, I don't think they do. And I think in part because right now, they don't have a full starting rotation either, right? And so on any given day during the course of the season, how much are you having to rely on your bullpen? How many innings will they have pitched by the time you reach the end of the season? So, I think that aspect is a little bit concerning. Yariel Rodriguez, just to come back to him for a moment. I heard from somebody last year that, at the trade deadline, he was one of like two untouchables.
Hmm.
That no matter what, they were not trading him. And it's, he struggled in April and beginning of May. Like it's really good to see that they have found a consistent role for him
Hmm.
and that he has been able to be as successful as he's been at it because he looks like a brand new guy out there,
He
right?
does, and he might be the only guy who can consistently go 2 innings and it not affect him because
Absolutely.
I was losing my mind in April, Jen. I was just like, Jeff Hoffman's the guy we always wanted, a dude who could close 2 inning games, such a rare animal out there. And it turns out it's a rare animal for a reason. And
Right.
they probably burned him out and overused him. And those 2 inning outings probably contributed to that.
I mean, it's hard to know because I mean, I haven't looked recently, but the last time I looked, Jeff Hoffman had pitched basically the same number of innings at this point in the season as he did last year.
Yeah.
Right. So I don't think that they've actually overused him. Maybe 2 innings back to back is overusing him, even though the total number of innings adds up to be
Hmm.
the same. It's really hard to know what it is. But unfortunately, now every time he takes the ball, you're holding your breath a little bit, right? And the moment a guy
Those
gets,
Romano
like,
feelings
here
are
we
back,
go.
baby.
you know, whereas I think fans have the utmost confidence right now in Rod, and he looks like he has the utmost confidence in himself.
Yes, absolutely. And I know that we're releasing this tomorrow morning, so Wednesday morning. So we're not exactly sure, everyone, how this game with Philadelphia went last night. But Jordan Romano does return, and
Hmm.
he's kind of found his footing. I mean, he's definitely done a lot better than he did his first 10 innings, which not a difficult thing to do. But he does seem like he's kind of fallen in. And with the PED suspension of Montero, it does look like Romano's back in that closing role there. Are you more comfortable with Jeff Hoffman than you were with Jordan Romano? I know that we've seen the highest of highs for Hoff and the lowest of lows too. Do you think that he is an upgrade in the closing position, which is what this front office was trying to do?
I think so. In the long run, yes, I think that he will prove to be an upgrade. And I have tremendous love for Jordan
Yeah,
Romano.
me
That is
too.
no shade towards him. But I do think Jeff Hoffman absolutely represents an upgrade. So, hopefully he can just find his form again, right?
Hmm. How do they fix this starting rotation, Jen? I know that Max Scherzer is throwing bullpens now, which is, I mean, good news, I guess. It's the closest thing to reinforcements coming. Spencer Turnbull has been a slow rise up right now. We're kind of in a weird scenario where, and I never thought I'd say this, Jen, where I'm like, I can't wait for Alek Manoah to come back.
I'm not there yet, but
Yeah. I mean, Ricky Tiedemann going down for Tommy John. You're seeing some good progress out of the young kids like Trey Yasavich and Cal Steven, but they're at best a year away, reasonably 2 years away. So, what is the solution here? Like, do you go with an Adam Macko, or do they need to make a too early trade?
I personally think they need to make a trade. And I mean, I don't know what you're giving up to make one this early. But I mean, okay, let's backtrack. I'm gonna
Mhm.
get up on my high horse here for a moment. I have what for two?
I was gonna say we get the old school Jen spiel here.
How long, as much as everyone was screaming about offense, and I agreed that they needed to improve their offense, I said you cannot overlook
Yes.
the holes in the starting pitching rotation. And for 2 years I've wanted them to add a legitimate starter to this rotation. Do I have a name in mind? No, I do not right now.
Hmm.
But I could see that there was this glaring hole in the starting rotation. And even if they had five serviceable guys, one injury meant disaster, right? That was always part of the equation. And right off the bat, down goes 41-year-old Max Scherzer,
3 innings.
right? Who, let's be honest, you know, even if he hadn't gone down that first game, it might have only been a matter of time, just given his age and where he's at in his career.
Hmm.
And they already had kind of a piecemeal spot in the rotation to begin with. So I think that they just have to bite the bullet and actually go out and get a legitimate starter, right? And
I
it
think
doesn't
it's
have to be a top of the front end of the rotation guy. It has to be somebody who can go out there every 5 days and hopefully give you 5 innings.
but it would sure be nice if it was the top end of the
Of
rotation.
course.
And I don't even mean that like because of course in any scenario it would be great to get an ace or whatever. Any team is going to say that. I just mean looking at this current rotation and the age of it and the fact that there isn't really an ace. In fact, it is arguable that there is a strong number two. And I love Kevin Gosman, and he's showing us glimpses of what we saw him do in 2023. And I think that he is starting to round into form far more than we saw in 2024. And I mean, he's at, I think, 4 really solid starts in a row. But you do look at the numbers up and down, and this is no disrespect to Chris Bassett, who gave us an absolutely incredible April. But if you look at Barrios, Gosman, and Bassett, I think it's a pretty big win if they're all three of them between 3.5 and a 4 ERA, which is
Yep.
great. It's
Yep.
great. And they're probably going to do that. And they're all probably going to log 150 plus innings, which is incredible. They're horses. But we've got a stable of horses and we have no aces. And it sure would be nice to have that guy that you just know is going to, if not get the W, the reason that they lose is because we're pulling our hair out and we're like, oh my God, another 2-1 loss, right?
Right. Right. Like, I mean, right now, if the Blue Jays were to make the playoffs, like Kevin Gosman's your game one starter,
Hmm.
yes? Yeah,
Probably, I would say so, yes.
probably, right?
Unless they get weird with the matchups, which is what this front office is very prone to doing, and maybe they play the matchup and there's a reason Kevin Gosman would go in the second game. I don't know. We all remember the
Right.
2020 playoffs when they did that weird Matt Schumacher and then into Ryu thing, but yeah.
But if you're assuming that they're going to go with their top pitcher or the guy,
Yes.
right, that's probably the guy you're going with. So, to your point, it would be great if you had one more guy who would be in that mix, who would be in that conversation.
Hmm. I know it would be expensive, especially right now. And I mean, to get a top end starter, it's going to be expensive no matter what you do. And I mean, there's always an argument to be made. Maybe you can get a better deal in the off season. But the way pitching is going right now, I don't know. Like, I don't remember any deals this off season just because it wasn't the trade deadline. So I don't know what they'd give up, but I think this deadline, and this transitions perfectly into the next subject. Ross Atkins, and I honestly, Jen, I'm so sick of saying these exact words. These exact words have come out of my mouth so many times over the last 2 years, but it feels like he has to be with his back against the wall at this point. His job is gone, and dear Lord, let his job be on the line. And if it is, I do feel like more than any other season we've watched over the last 3 or 4, the possibility of him actually pushing some real chips in this deadline seems plausible. Where are you at on this deadline? Can you see them going big, or do you think that they're going to do their regular? They'll bolster the lineup a little, but we shouldn't hold our breath for anything significant.
The difficulty in answering that question is that everything we know about Mark Shapiro and Ross Atkins is that they tend to stick to their valuations.
Mhm.
I frankly don't think that they signed Vladdy as much as ownership stepped in and signed Vladdy, because I think if the front office, I think if Ross Atkins was going to make that deal, he would have done it before the start of spring training. They
Yeah.
would have not all marched out there and had their sad press conference, right? In which Vladdy said they weren't even close, only to then get it done,
Yeah.
a few weeks later. I think that was entirely ownership stepping in, right? So, history suggests that they have a valuation for their players and the players that they are pursuing, and they know what they're comfortable going to, and they will not come off of that. They will not go beyond that. Does that change if your job is on the line? Does that change if your job is on the line? Because if Ross Atkins were to be fired at the end of this season, does he get another job? Does he get another GM job? Does he get another opportunity? Right? I don't think that he does.
No, I don't either. I mean, there might be some sort of executive spot for him in a front office somewhere, but
Not a
having any
role like
sort of
this.
power, no, that's
Right.
done.
Right. And,
It might be done here.
right, exactly. So I mean, that's the only thing I think that you can maybe, try as a fan to hang your hat on come this trade deadline, is that quite literally jobs are on, they should be,
Mhm.
they ought to be. We've been saying this for a while, but this season in particular, they really should be on the line. And so, it's the same thing with Alex Anthopoulos. Like, he kind of knew he was out the door when he
Mhm.
did what he did, right?
Something a lot of people forget, because he also, like, when AA went all in, his back was also against the wall.
Absolutely, right? So
They were 50 and 51.
yeah, right, exactly. And I think he also knew, like, in terms of just the his working conditions, right? Like I am not here for the long haul. So, this is my one opportunity to do this. And so let's do it, right? Go
Mhm.
big, and if we win the World Series, which they should have that season, then I go out a hero, right? And I think I don't know if Ross Atkins has that in him.
I don't know if he does either.
I just
I
don't know that he does. And to be completely honest, like he's just either way, he's just not the guy I want handling a trade deadline, whether they're buyers or sellers,
Mhm.
right? I just don't feel confident in him making that big splashy over the top move that would ignite a fan base.
And what's really interesting too is I also am a little worried how much is Edward Rogers involved now, right? Like if that has eroded, that trust has eroded, and somehow they're still just working puppets, I guess. Like the puppet chain has just gotten longer and longer here. I do worry about ownership meddling and stuff that maybe they're not baseball wise good enough to do, right?
Right.
We've seen other organizations where the owner starts getting a little too involved, and next thing you know, you're dealing with the Los Angeles Angels, and dear God, I don't want that.
No.
So I do wonder how much power Ross actually has, but this deadline could be interesting for better or for worse. It could be very interesting. Hopefully, the Jays continue these W series against these weaker teams, like it's been nice to see them go out against the A's after they kind of blew it against the Rays. I was all excited after that Padres sweep, and then it's just been a yo-yo of a season. It's been
Well,
really tough.
and I mean, I know the Padres came in at sort of a low
Mm-hmm.
point in their season, but I did not expect the Jays to sweep them, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like I would not have anticipated that. So that, like you said, that was kind of like, oh, maybe they're on the upwards trajectory here. And then, oh God, the Rays.
I
Um,
know.
like that was such a debacle, and it sucked all the life out of the fan base,
Hmm.
but then they go and put up the runs that they did against Oakland. Oh, it's not Oakland, sorry.
Yeah.
Sorry, I'm the A's. The A's of nowhere. And yeah, this goes back to what we said right off the top, which is that I still don't really know what this team is. I don't think
Yeah.
anybody does. They're sitting at what, 3 games above 500
Hmm.
right now. But
This Phillies team should be a test,
in two
right?
weeks they could be 3 games under again, right? And so if you're kind of just always doing this.
And this is where this team is at. I mean, again, like the Phillies are going to be a test, but they also just came off a sweep from Milwaukee. And you know what? If the Blue Jays take 2 of 3, people can also be like, well, they faced the Phillies at their lowest, right? So they didn't get Zach Wheeler, which is true and good. Um,
Regardless, I think if they took 2 out of 3 from the Phillies, I think fans should be
yeah,
happy, really happy with that, right? I think that would actually suggest the Jays are doing something well.
couldn't agree more, Jen. This has been so lovely. It has been far too long since we've talked baseball. You got like 5 more minutes in you?
Sure.
Yeah, okay. I just want to talk Andre Jimenez and kind of the landscape as he returns here. The Blue Jays announced today that Jimenez is being reinstated from the 10-day IL. Tyler Heineman is back, which I never thought I'd say these words, but the Magic Man, like, holy cow, so nice to have him back behind the plate there. And then Stefanik and Sanchez have been sent back down. So Andre Jimenez is a really interesting player because there's a lot of fans who, honestly, Jen, it is kind of blowing my mind how many people think this might be the worst trade in the history of the Blue Jays, which I am not in that category at all. In fact, some people think I'm delusional because I really do think in the long run, Jimenez's contract is going to be a wash. It's going to be fine. I don't think it's going to be celebrated. I just think that the value will be there in the end. And the pillow it gives this team as they transition from Bo Bichette into Arjun Namala is going to be worth it.
I would agree with that.
So, with all of that said, and I know we kind of touched on Bo Bichette, do you think there's a world where Bo Bichette even if this team is in a playoff spot, do you think there's a world where Bo Bichette gets moved at the deadline? Maybe that's how we get our ace starter.
It's funny because I was going to ask you the same thing. It's exactly what's been rattling around up in here is that
Yeah.
they are in a position if they wanted to trade him because he would automatically be their biggest asset that they could move at the
Hmm.
deadline. And I think that they have to be very smart about this, right? They cannot F this up.
No, they can't.
They cannot F this up. So if they know that they are not going to sign him, right? And I feel like they ought to have a relatively good idea of
Hmm.
whatever conversations they've had, where Bo's mind is at, where their own minds are at. And if they know this isn't happening or it is very unlikely for this to happen, then I think that regardless of what position they're in at the trade deadline, you have to trade him and get a haul. You
Hmm.
have to, because you can't just let him walk for nothing, in my opinion, at the end of the season.
Grounds crew, let us know, where are you at on Bo Bichette? Would you be able to stomach him being moved mid-season again in a scenario where maybe they do get that ace starter they need, or maybe they get that massive bat, that home run power that they've been so desperate for?
Right. And that's the caveat because without some of those pieces, does it matter that he's in your lineup? Right. Like the value that he brings to the lineup,
Hmm.
is that eroded by the fact that these other pieces are missing? And and that's part of why you're hovering around 500, right? If you
Yeah,
can fill
it's
a
great to
significant,
have a sprinkler, but if you've got no lawn,
yeah, so if you can fill the I have neither, but anyways, but if you can fill a significant need by trading him and you're not really I like I said, they have to be so incredibly careful and smart about this. I thought they should have actually considered trading him last year at the deadline.
same.
I think that I really have felt that the writing has been on the wall for him regarding a contract extension, and I think everybody in the room knows it. This is me just sort of speculating,
Absolutely
but I think
speculation.
that's where all the conversation is around him. Like I think that I don't think I'm saying anything that anybody else isn't saying.
Hmm.
And I really thought they should have gotten whatever they could have from for him last season, right? When he would have, and I understand he was at lower value, but you get him for a longer time. I don't know, maybe that evens out. Yes, anyways, I would absolutely look to move him at the trade deadline if and only if they could get back something like, you know, a one or two in the rotation plus, yeah.
This deadline is going to be so interesting, Jen, because honestly, the pieces that the Blue Jays have and could move, and the way that this could go is that they could be a contending team and then look very different after the deadline. With Bo Bichette maybe being on the block, right? Addison Barger maybe being a piece. They're obviously showcasing Jonathan Clase.
Mhm.
Nathan Lucas, there's no way he's on this team come after the deadline, in my opinion. He's like one of the most not valuable, but he's a guy who proves day in and day out on a team like Oakland, he would be in the middle of that
Absolutely.
lineup, right?
Yeah.
Or maybe, sorry, not Oakland, the A's, but like, even the Marlins, right? Send Nathan Lucas to the Marlins. Maybe we get Sandy Alcantara. Obviously, you got to sweeten the pot. I'm not saying Nathan Lucas is going to get you that sort of return, but maybe
He's a nice piece.
exactly,
He's a nice piece.
exactly. But these are all guys that are on the major league lineup.
Right.
So we could really be seeing, like pieces from here, strengths from here being traded for weaknesses, and then we're rolling the dice. It all comes together in time for October.
Yeah, and you know what? I think that would be incredibly exciting, right? And
Hmm.
and again, as much as some of those
And
losing some
some
of those,
fans will hate this too.
absolutely, right? And that's perfectly fine. Like, fans are fans for a reason. They fall in love with certain players. Those are their guys. Those are
Hmm.
the ones that they want they want to see their team be successful with that particular player on the team, right? But if you're looking at kind of that bigger picture, and what might actually move this team closer to, earning that playoff spot, I think some very difficult decisions are going to have to be made. And I'm perfectly fine with that, right? I want winning baseball in Toronto. And I don't necessarily care. It's not that I don't care about the players, but the
Hmm.
players can change. I want team success.
I'm the same. Blue Jays first, everyone else second.
Right.
And I love the players on this team, but Blue Jays first.
Yeah, bring back winning baseball, right? Bring back the playoffs. I can't, can you imagine in October if it goes that way, and hopefully, a month and a half from now,
Hmm.
we're not meeting again to talk about the
Yeah.
sell-off,
Yeah, I
right?
agree. And on that, Jen, we've got to have you back and talk way more because I love talking baseball with you. Thank you so much for making time. For everyone listening, you can follow Jen at baseball_Jen, 2 N's on Twitter. I suggest you do so. Full of great baseball knowledge and just a good follow. Again, my friend, thank you so much for joining.
Thank you. It's been so good to talk to you. And yeah, we cannot go
We
this
can't
long again
go
without
almost
talking
six
baseball.
months again. This was
Crazy.
insane. Cheers.